Hi everybody, this is Brian Koo with another ROK video. And if you are tired of watching past battles in Rise of Kingdoms, then I have got the fix for you today. This is a Siege of Orleans war between some of the strongest 8 kingdoms in the game, and we are all in a zone together, and we are fighting via flag battles and open field fighting in order to essentially negotiate which side controls which parts of these zones. The footage we're looking at today is from the western side, Zone 6 of Terrain. And in this particular war, this was the secondary Zone 6. The two main camps had the choice of going into both of the Zone 6s, and the majority of the attention was paid to the eastern side zone, Ile-de-France. But what we did on night 1 of the war is that we placed a Farm Alliance fort in Terrain. Our allies in 1718 also placed a Farm Alliance fort, and as the battle lines became drawn and static over in Ile-de-France, some of us ported over to Terrain and we started burning enemy flags and making some progress in this zone. Because ultimately, the two zones are equally important, right? There are 2 entrances into Kingsland from both Zone 6s, and so we just made a strategical decision to make some gains in Terrain, while this right here was happening in Ile-de-France. This was a perpetual open field fight between our enemies 1818 and our campmates 1718. They were on this particular scrap of land for many hours fighting each other in the open field. And these are 2 very, very strong kingdoms, and I think part of what was happening here is that they were just testing each other out. Orleans is a KvK where open field is extremely important, and these were the 2 open field juggernauts of this entire war, and they were just saying, look, if you can stand with us in the field, then maybe you have a chance to win, but if you can't stand with us in the field, then you have no chance. And that proposition evolved into this many hours long fight where both teams said, hey, we actually can stand in the field with you, let's see what you've got. And in this footage right here, we see the leadership structure of 818 right in front of us. You have Arvix, who is a very well-known whale in ROK. Next to him is Daddy, who was a co-leader of 1818. Cigar King is next to him, another co-leader. And then in the second row, you see Cigar Minfouk, who was a leader of 818 when the war started. But by the end of the war, Minfouk will be the co-leader of 1818, and Daddy will have less of a role, and I believe after the KvK ends, that account will get sold. And what happens on this first night when we teleported over to Terrain is that we stressed out the 1818 leadership structure and their coordination to some extent. We are creating a problem for them right now because they are not able to just fight in one place. They have to deal with what we're doing over here in Terrain. They have to deal with, the territory that we had been taking a few hours earlier. And the point that we're at right now is after we had burned them and after they had ported over here with a very large force led by Arvix, and they just overwhelmed us and were burning us for a couple hours as well. And what happened is that I saw a couple of our allies from 1718 port their cities over here, and instead of going to bed and letting them take all of our territory, I just said, hey, let's try to defend this flag one time. This clover flag that we're in front of right now. I said, let's just try to defend it one time. Let's see what happens. Our allies are over here. Let's see what happens. And that kicked off a multi-hour fight at this exact location where both sides were essentially, fighting for control of this moment in time at this particular spot on the map. Now, you just saw me put some gear on my Jadwiga because I saw that huge 1818 open field presence, and I was worried about this flag getting swarmed, and I figured we needed a backup garrison in place. But look at what happened. They completely cleared our field, and then they all walked away right as this Joan XY rally was hitting the garrison. And so we did what any right-thinking defending side would do, and we just swarmed the Joan rally down. And we've now seen 2 rallies get run down to 0, and it is not 1818 running these rallies, it is their campmates in 2088 who are running the rallies. 2088 was, I believe, a primarily Japanese kingdom. They were not as strong as 1818, but the reality is 1818 could have run this operation. They could have launched all these rallies. They're campmates, and so they could have been doing the rallies, but 1818 left the rallying and the rally filling to 2088, and they just handled the open field presence here. They're also rallying this other flag here, a flag that we didn't even have a marker on, and one of our Korean teammates just threw a mixed garrison in this flag. And it's kind of interesting that mixed flag is always the weaker flag. It's a harder flag to defend. It has a weaker garrison, but they really don't. I don't think they rallied that flag again the entire night. And I think I'm just showing you some shades of not great coordination from our enemy. And at the same time, I think I'm showing now some pretty good coordination on our side. We are swarming this Flavia Scipio garrison to help out the 1718 rally that's hitting it. And as we're doing that, some of our other teammates are pushing the enemy open field away from the flag, giving us an even clearer lane to reinforce the rally and swarm this very swarmable garrison. And 1718 and ourselves, we've talked very little during this particular fight here. We really just coordinated by the visuals of the map. We looked at what was happening on the map, and then we acted accordingly and helped our allies as much as we could. We saw 1718 whales poured over here, and we said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should try to start defending. At times, we saw that the enemy was rallying 1718's flags, and we moved our ball down there to help. At other times, 1718 saw that we were getting rallied, and they moved their ball up to help us. That's unspoken coordination that just works as a bit of a flow between knowledgeable players and knowledgeable teams who understand what the correct thing to do is. And that's how we approached this particular battle. Whereas it seemed to me that there was probably a lot more talking on the enemy side. There was talking between the campmates about who should rally, when should they rally, should the open field be there or not. There was probably talking inside 1818 as well about how much attention should they pay to this secondary zone. What leaders should come over here? What whales should come over here and help? And ultimately, you see players like Arvix appear and then disappear throughout this fight. There are times when Arvix is here. There are other times when Arvix ports back to that ongoing open field brawl that I showed you earlier. And I think we did succeed in flustering 1818 a bit here, where when the KvK was coming to a close, one of their leaders, or one of their just, knowledgeable players, did come onto my live stream and say that while 1718 was the muscle that pushed our side forward, 770, my kingdom, we did a good job of opening multiple fronts and creating problems for 1818 in terms of how they handled fighting in several places at once. Now here again, they have completely pushed our open field away. They had the ability and did oftentimes in this fight just clear our field and create a very dangerous situation for our flag. But again, look what's happening here. They are all walking away, and the rally is hitting just as all of this open field presence is walking away. And so we did what anybody would do here. We swarmed this Joan rally again. And you know, you can just see that they're kind of just they're not coordinated. They're not hitting the marks that you would really just naturally hit if you were watching the game and in a nice flow state with your team. And we have now gotten several good trades against these rallies, and we are really disincentivizing anyone from 1818 from wanting to join this 2088 rally. You know, they're seeing their campmates run one rally after another down to 0, and there's just no one who wants to join that type of rally. And so what started as a, you know, let's see what happens, let's defend this flag one time and just see what happens, has turned into a situation where the enemy is a little bit, you know, they're stymied. We have slowed down their progress. What had been a very smooth offensive for them has now ground to a halt, and they were, quite frankly, forced to bring more players over here to help them resume their burning ways. And so Arvix has ported back over here. I'm fighting Arvix right now. I go into dot mode, and the biggest issue with dot mode is that you don't know who you're fighting against. And so I don't think I really realized that I was fighting against Arvix here. My marches are getting melted, and I'm barely even noticing it. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things where 1818 always had that very dangerous ability to explosively turn the tables by just porting in a couple of very, very strong players. And that was just an ever-present threat from this team, and one of the things that they did the absolute best is that they could hit you hard, and they could do it very, very quickly. So with Arvix now in the zone, I'm seeing that there is another rally on our flag. I redirect our ball to be right at our flag. But, you know, we've got a skeleton crew here of just probably 4 or 5 players who are all on voice, who are doing what they can to protect our flag against players who are much bigger than us, who have more marches, and who just have an overall bigger murder ball to work with right here. And so here, Warthog and Arvix are both in the open field around our flag. Arvix is the #1, has the most kill points of anybody in 1818. I think Warthog is number 6 in the kingdom. They're 2 of the most accomplished whales in 1818. And they have now finally timed this correctly, where their open field is here at the flag as this Scipio Herald rally is hitting the flag. And they immediately swarm my Jan Hera garrison here. Now what I did was I just threw my open field at the swarmers, and then I got on my alt account and started filling up this rally, or filling up the garrison from my shielded farmed city that is sitting right there. The issue we had though is that the other city that's right there, which is another farm, that farm did not reinforce this flag. And so they managed to catch us off guard here. We did not have great reinforcements, and the swarm plus the rally is going to get the burn on my flag. Now you can see that our reinforcements here are pretty scratchy. Bogus and Toxin both got 1 reinforcing march into the flag, but all the other reinforcements are from my farm that I was throwing in there using my phone. So it's not a perfect defense for us by any means, but it's still a positive trade for my Jan Hera garrison. You know, even against a janky rally and a devastating swarm, my Jan Hera did get a nice positive trade here. It's getting, you know, very good trades against this medium-sized player here, Pateau. And then even against Arvix Nebu YSG, it gets a positive trade. An even trade against Warthog. The Arvix Nevsky Joan does get the positive trade against me. I mean, some things are just, you know, hard to deal with. But, you know, the Jan Hera Garrison held up good enough here. Yes, they got the burn, but they had to pay a somewhat harsh price for it. You know, at least it was a modestly profitable trade for us. And it took them quite a number of failed rallies to even get to this point of getting one single burn on our flag. And so immediately my reaction was, we're not done defending this flag. Just because we got swarmed one time does not mean that we're done here. We're going to defend this again in 20 minutes, and we made them work for it the first time, and let's make them work for it the second time as well. In the next video, we will come back to this exact point, this pretty critical point on the map and this key moment in time. So subscribe to the channel if you want to see more war footage like this. Throw a like on the video, that's a great way of supporting my channel. And until next time, I will see you all on the flip side.